I haven't streamed in a while, so hopefully everything's good. Go live on TikTok. Okay. Hello, 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 hello. I just want to make sure I don't blow out everybody's fucking ears when let me see.
2011, I'm driving to my apartment.
Okay. So the audio is not picking up for TikTok. Uh,
From my girlfriend's parents' house. Me and my girlfriend are on our way home. She starts screaming. Next thing I know, I'm looking at a bright orange thing punching its way into the atmosphere. I say to myself in my head, that's got to be a meteor. It aero brakes to a stop 1,000 meters above my head.
okay.
At which point
So basically what I'm going to do is, since now I have dual PC and my computer can handle it, I'm going to be play the game and I'm going to watch this video about aliens because I like aliens, okay? If you don't like aliens, something's wrong with you. All right? I'm going to watch this video called The Official Alien Interview. And I think this is from some guy that wrote a book. And it's almost like we're just gonna listen to an audiobook. Just because I like the topic. The first video I ever posted on TikTok that blew up was that, so fuck. Alright.
freak the fuck out. This thing is stationary. It's orange. It's glowing. It's on fire. It's transparent. The next thing it does is rocket off at an 90-degree angle. When I say 90 degrees, I mean like dead square. This scared the freaking hell out of me. Anyway, that's my experience. Have a good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chris Ramsey, and welcome back to another
Hello, hello.
episode of Debriefed. Today is yet another beginning of a
Wait, let me see. I want to make sure it sounds right. I don't want to blow y'all's ears out, anything. Let's see how it sounds.
document read through. This document, however, is fascinating. I'm completely enamored by this story. Is it true? Is it not true? Who knows? Maybe we'll find out, but we are
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Let me just tone it down to 7, and then we're Gucci into Gucci.
guaranteed to have a good time reading through it. So before we get started, folks, leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you like videos like these document read-throughs, and especially these alien interactions. This is something I'm fascinated by. I think even more so than the UFO topic. Always feels good to have great guests in the skiff and learn from these amazingly, talented individuals and individuals with interesting backgrounds and stories and history. But every now and then, I gotta tell you, there is nothing I enjoy more than sitting here with some questionable documents, a cup of Joe, and you guys.
Yeah.
Also, hats are back in stock. I know a lot of you have been asking about the black snapbacks and the trucker hats. Those are back in stock. We're trying to replenish the store, but you guys keep buying everything up. So not a bad problem to have. But yeah, we restocked some hats until the next collection drops. So feel free to head over to area52.shop to check those out.
Support.
And right before we begin, a quick word from our sponsors. Inside this skiff, we work in a world built on prevention. We don't wait for leaks to happen. We don't wait for breaches. We plan ahead. Because when it comes to sensitive information, reacting too late isn't an option. But here's the truth. Your personal data deserves the same mindset. Data brokers are constantly collecting and selling your details, even if no breach has happened yet. And once that data's out there, guess what?
Stupid, don't give a fuck.
His passive from it, folks. We paid the bills. This transcript is an excerpt from a book published by Lawrence R. Spencer, who has sadly passed a few years ago. So I would highly, highly encourage all of those watching, if you want to get the full story, as I will not be reading the entire book, please head over to the website. I've linked it below. Purchase it for yourself to support, his estate or his family, and have a look for yourself, and so you don't miss any of the details. So in the first chapter, Lawrence recounts his contact with Miss McElroy, a woman who claimed to have ties to the 1947 Roswell incident in New Mexico. She said she refused to discuss it because her life depended on it, and once in 1988, Lawrence was able to allegedly speak to this lady on the phone. This is when she lived in Glasgow, Montana. He later received a handwritten letter from her in Ireland referencing his book. But when he tried to contact her at the return address, the homeowner informed him that Mrs. McElroy and her husband had recently deceased and were buried locally. However, despite this, he could not find any official records of her existence under any name. So did she give a pseudonym to, the landlord and to Lawrence Spencer? Quite possible. But it does lead us to suspect that either this is made up or the government simply, erased her identity as part of the cover-up. Your guess is as good as mine, but that is where we begin. August 12th in 2007, this is the letter from Mrs. McElroy. Dear Lawrence.
All right.
I am typing this letter to you on my old Underwood typewriter that I bought after I was discharged from the Army. Somehow, it seems like a fitting contrast to the subject of this letter and the documents you will find enclosed in the envelope. The last time I spoke to you was about 8 years ago. During your brief telephone interview with me, you asked me to assist you with the research of the Oz Factors book you were writing because you suspected that I might know something that would help your investigation into the possibility that extraterrestrial beings may have influenced the history of Earth. When we spoke, I told you that I did not have any information that I could share with you about anything. Okay, pause. Important to note that the author, Lawrence R. Spencer, is indeed also a fictional author who writes about aliens. Okay. Now, a lot of you, this is where you check out. This is where you go, well, that sums it up. This guy writes books about aliens, and all of a sudden he gets some lady who says she spoke to an alien and he has the transcripts and no one else does. Seems suspicious? Absolutely. And I concur. It is suspicious.
Yeah, so that means it's not true.
It's not going to stop me from listening.
Facts.
Because let's say that what he's saying is true, then I think that this is very important. I think that the level of importance currently outweighs the possibility that this isn't legitimate. So
I doubt
we
it.
must continue for our research to read on. Also, this isn't new. Whitley Strieber as well has written many science fiction or fictional books, but is also, as you know, allegedly been abducted by aliens. Also, Nick Pope, who worked for the Ministry of Defense in the UK at the UFO desk, nearly 21 years at the ministry, also wrote science fiction books. So is there a pattern that leads these people to the phenomenon, or are all these people just simply trying to make a bag? You know, that's really up to you to decide. And then I'm sure they've dealt with those criticisms as well. But again, we carry on. Since then, I've read your book and found it very interesting and compelling. Now, I'm not going to read the entire letter of Miss McElroy because I don't think it's pertinent. And I think, again, if you want to read the entire letter, you can go ahead and buy the book. I'm going to give you a few footnotes here that are rather pertinent, and then we're going to get into the interaction with the being. So essentially, she reconsidered her position about not coming forward and not giving him any details or helping him out with, his book. And now she's like, well, maybe I will tell you actually what went on. She goes on saying that many men have been killed to extinguish the possibility of revealing the knowledge that she has helped to withhold from society. But at this point, she's 83 years old, and she says here, I've decided to leave this body, which has outlasted its usefulness to me, using a painless method of self-administered euthanasia. I have very few months to live and nothing to fear or lose. And she goes on talking about fairy mounds and hills of Terra and the Great Mound, like the pyramids. And all of this actually ends up relating
Kimberly?
back to her relationship with the extraterrestrial and the information that was provided to her. So very fascinating stuff. But here's the reason why she comes forward with this. She says, a crystal clear perspective of hindsight has revealed a higher purpose to me, assisting the survival of the planet, all living beings, and life forms in our galaxy. The status quo of our government establishment has been to protect the people from knowledge of such matters. In fact, the only protection afforded by ignorance and secrecy is to hide the private agenda of those in power to enslave others, and, by doing so, to disarm every perceived enemy and ally through superstition and stupidity. Them's fighting words, Matilda. Matilda's had enough. Now, I'm entrusting these documents to your discretion to impart to the world in any form or matter you see fit. My only request is that you do so in a way that will not threaten your own life or well-being, if possible. If you were to incorporate these notes of my experience into a work of fiction, such as a novel, the factual nature of the material could be easily dismissed or discredited by agency for whom national security is used as a personal shield against scrutiny and justice. In so doing, you could disavow any knowledge of their true origin and claim that it is fictitious work of your imagination. Whoever said that truth is stranger than fiction was right as rain. For most people, all of this will be unbelievable. Unfortunately, beliefs are not a reliable criteria for reality. I agree with that. Well said. Just because you believe something does not make it so. All right, let's get to the meat and bones here. As you know, 1947, July, the Roswell Army Airfield issued a press release stating that personnel from the field's 509th Bomb Group had recovered a crashed flying disc from a ranch near Roswell, New Mexico, sparking intense media interest, to say the least.
Roswell.
Later that same day, the commanding general of the 8th Air Force stated that Major Jesse Marcel, who was involved with the original recovery of the debris, had recovered only tattered remnants of a weather balloon. The true facts of the incident have been suppressed by the United States government since then. Now, we know this to be true because Jesse Marcel also came forward later in his life prior to his death, stating that, there was a cover-up, and the materials that they had were not the weather balloon stuff. And he was told to basically pose with this ridiculous, balsa wood and weather balloon debris.
All I could do is keep my mouth shut. And General Ramey is the one who told the newspapers what it was and to forget about it. It was nothing more than a weather observation balloon. Of course, which we both knew differently.
She goes on to say that she was enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Force, Women's U.S. Army Air Force Medical Corps, which was a part of the U.S. Army back then, and she was assigned to the 509th Bomb Group as a flight nurse at the time of the incident. When the news that there had been a crash was received at the base, I was asked to accompany Mr. Cavett, the counterintelligence officer, to the crash site as the driver of his vehicle, and to render any needed emergency medical assistance to any survivors if necessary. Therefore, I briefly witnessed the wreckage of an alien spacecraft, as well as the remains of several alien personnel aboard the craft who were already dead. When we arrived, I learned that one of the personnel on board of the craft had survived the crash. And this is something that's come up by the way, in UFO lore, that some people say, oh no, all the bodies were dead. And then other people say, no, there was a single survivor. And this is about that sole survivor. So this being was conscious and apparently uninjured. The conscious alien was similar in appearance, but not the same as the others. Huh. None of the other personnel present could communicate with the survivor, as the being did not communicate verbally or by any recognizable signs. However, while I examined the patient for injuries, I immediately detected and understood that the alien being was attempting to communicate with me by mental images or telepathic thought, which projected directly from the mind of the being. I immediately reported this phenomenon to Mr. Cavett, as no other person present could perceive these thoughts, and the alien seemed able and willing to communicate with me. It was decided, after a brief consultation with a senior officer, that I would accompany the surviving alien back to the base. Can you imagine being a nurse? First of all right, there's a wreckage, there's something. Whoa, what is that being? Boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden, you're getting images in your head, flashes of messages, seeing this body, seeing this being alive, and you're like, what the heck is going on? And imagine Lawrence R. Spencer, the author, reading this note, getting this letter and being like, holy cow. By the way, if anyone's out there who has a similar story, please send it my way. Figure out a way to get in contact with me, maybe through Discord, and I would happily read your letter as well. This was partly due to the fact that I was a nurse and could attend to the physical needs of the alien as well as serve as a non-threatening communicator and companion. So she was designated the companion to the alien. Being a nurse, she could be trusted to tend to the alien should it need any medical attention. She says, my duty was to communicate with and interview the alien and to make a complete report of all that I discovered to command authorities. Subsequently, I was supplied with specific lists of questions provided to me by military and non-military personnel, which I was to interpret for the alien and record the responses to the questions provided. I also accompanied the alien at all times during medical testing and the many other examinations to which the alien was subjected by staff from numerous government agencies. As you can imagine, especially back then, yeah, there would be a lot of testing going on. Poor thing. She says, I was given a promotion in rank to Senior Master Sergeant to improve my security rating and to increase my pay grade from $54 a month to $138 a month. Wow, that's a big increase. For this very unusual assignment, I performed these duties from July 7th through to August 1947, at which time the alien died or departed the body, as you will read about in my notes. Although I was never left entirely alone with the alien, as there were always military personnel, intelligence agency people, and a variety of other officials present from time to time, I did have uninterrupted access to and communication with the alien being for nearly 6 weeks. It's a long time. Hereinafter is an interview and summary of my personal recollections of conversations, in quotes, with the alien craft pilot, whom I came to know by the identity of Errol. A-I-R-L, Errol. I feel that it is my duty at this time, in the best interest of the citizens of Earth, to reveal what I have learned from my interaction with Errol during those 6 weeks. On the anniversary of her death or departure 60 years ago. Wow, her death. Okay, so according to Matilda, this is a female entity. Very interesting. Although I served as a nurse in the Army Air Force, I am not a pilot or technician. Further, I did not have any direct contact with the spacecraft or other materials recovered from the crash site at the time or thereafter. To that degree, it must be taken into consideration that my understanding of the communications I had with Errol are based on my own subjective ability to interpret the meaning of the thoughts and mental images I was able to perceive. Fascinating. Our communications did not consist of spoken language in the conventional sense. Indeed, the body of the alien had no mouth through which to speak. Whoa. That's crazy and creepy. So we're not thinking Skinny Bob here. We're not thinking... there is an image, however. This is interesting. UAP Juan shared this a few days ago on his Twitter account. And these were apparently leaked images of alien beings. So creepy, by the way. All right, so do not look at this if you're easily creeped out, but these things are creepy as F. And you'll notice, and this is one thing I noticed, they do not perceive to have any mouths. And one of them's wearing like some type of cloak. Is this one of the beings that Matilda communicated with? Very interesting. Our communication was by telepathy. At first, I could not understand Errol very clearly. I could perceive images, emotions, and impressions, but it was difficult for me to express these verbally. Once Errol learned the English language, she was able to focus her thoughts more precisely using symbols and meanings of words I could understand. Learning the English language was done as a favor to me. It was more for my own benefit than hers. Whoa, we taught this alien English. Okay. By the end of our interview sessions, and increasingly since then, I've become more comfortable with telepathic communication. I've become more adept at understanding Errol's thoughts as though they are my own. Somehow, her thoughts become my thoughts. Her emotions are my emotions. However, this is limited by her willingness and intention to share her own personal universe with me. She's able to be selective about what communication I am allowed to receive from her. Likewise, her experience, training, education, relationships, and purpose are uniquely her own. Whoa. See, this is a really interesting thought for me because when we think about telepathy or we think about sharing some type of intelligent consciousness, we automatically assume that all thoughts are everybody's and everybody agrees and it's this hive mind sort of collective, when in reality, we do apparently transfer thought, but that doesn't really eliminate uniqueness somehow. Individuality still persists to a certain extent. That's really interesting. This is the symbol of the domain. The domain is a race or civilization of which Errol, the alien I interviewed, is an officer, pilot, and engineer, serving in the domain expeditionary force. The symbol represents the origin and unlimited boundary of the known universe, united and integrated into a vast civilization under the control of the domain. Now, is it literally the domain, or is this just like an interpretation of the word domain? Who knows? Errol is currently stationed at a base in the asteroid belt, which she refers as a space station in the solar system of Earth. First and foremost, Errol is herself. Secondarily, she voluntarily serves as an officer, pilot, and engineer in the domain expeditionary force. In that capacity, she has duties and responsibilities, but she is at leave to come and go as she pleases also. Please accept this material and make it known to as many people as possible. I repeat that this is not my intention to endanger your life with the possession of this material, nor do I really expect you to believe any of it either. However, I do sense that you can appreciate the value that such knowledge may have to those who are willing and able to face the reality of it. Mankind needs to know the answers to questions which are contained in these documents. Who are we? Where do we come from? What is our purpose on Earth? Is mankind alone in the universe? If there is intelligent life elsewhere, why have they not contacted us? It is vital that people understand the devastating consequences to our spiritual and physical survival if we fail to take effective action to undo long-standing and pervasive effects of alien intervention on Earth. Perhaps the information in these documents will serve as a stepping stone to a better future for mankind. I hope that you can be more clever, creative, and courageous in the distribution of this information than I have been. May the gods bless you and keep you. This is Matilda O'Donnell McElroy. I mean, this is truly, truly fascinating. Folks, you know what the requirements are here. Suspend your disbelief. Check it at the door. You know, belief often gets in the way of a good story, and all too many times, especially in the UFO sphere, I will say, we often get carried away by focusing on the wrong things, by denying evidence prior to even absorbing it. based on a worldview that has already been ingrained and cemented in our psyche. To willingly suspend your disbelief in order to absorb information is a skill that I'm sure that you all possess. To deny information and ridicule it outright prior to absorbing the information, this makes you an accomplice to the cover-up. Intaking information does not mean having to believe it. Whether true, whether lies, it is still information. And if you find yourself in the face of new information that seems a little unbelievable, unable to absorb this information due to any pre-existing bias that you may have inherited through the few decades that you've been on this planet, then I highly suggest to practice suspending your disbelief. Keep your conviction low when it comes to this information. Do not believe it outright, but do take it in. Only then will you be able to make connections through this and maybe weed out the possible truth that lies within these documents. There might be one piece of information here
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
that connects to something that you already know, and that might unlock an entire new reality for you. Or not. Either way, let's have fun. So this is the first interview with the alien. Matilda writes, by the time the alien had been returned to the base, I had already spent several hours with her. Now, as I mentioned, Mr. Cavett told me to stay with the alien since I was the only person among us who could understand her communication. I could not understand my ability to communicate with the being. I had never before that time experienced telepathic communication with anyone. The nonverbal communication I experienced was like the understanding you might have when a child or a dog is trying to get you to understand something, but much more direct and powerful. Even though there were no words spoken or signs made, the intention of the thoughts were unmistakable to me. I realized later that although I received the thought, I did not necessarily interpret its meaning exactly. I think that the alien being was not willing to discuss technical matters due to the nature of her position as an officer and a pilot with a duty to maintain the security and confidentiality required by her own unit or organization. Any soldier who is captured by the enemy in the line of duty has a responsibility to withhold vital information, even in the face of interrogation or torture, of course. Pause here. This seems a little anthropomorphic to my liking. I just feel like, hey, you know, if this is an interpretation of something, it does also feel like we are imposing something we would do onto this other species. But who knows? Perhaps they're more like us than we think. But in spite of that, I've always felt that the alien being was not really trying to hide anything from me. I just never got that feeling. Her communication always seemed honest and sincere to me, but I suppose you can never know for sure. I definitely feel that I shared a unique bond with the alien. It was a kind of trust or empathy that you have with a patient or child. I think this is because the alien could understand that I was really interested in her and had no harmful intention, nor would I allow any harm to come to her if I could prevent it. This was true too. I refer to the alien as her. Actually, the being was not sexual in any way, either physiologically or psychologically. She did have a rather strong feminine presence and demeanor. However, in terms of physiology, the being was asexual and had no internal or external reproductive organs. Her body was more like the body of a doll or a robot. There were no internal organs, as the body was not constructed of biological cells. It did have kind of a circuit system or electrical nervous system that ran through the body, but I could not understand how it worked. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. This part for me does raise a bit of an orange flag, I would say, just because, you know, we've read so many other documents and so many other